It's the diary of a tired black man. Hey, it's the diary of a tired black man.
Hey, peace family, your boy FONZi Dean, trying back with it once again. DOA TVM. Let's go back in with Dean. We've got a couple of points to pick up on. We've been exploring just the dynamics of happenings without the media recently, with the reprehensible amount of reports that we see coming in of, you know, issues of, in some cases, extreme, and in most cases, egregious violence and stuff towards women. And, you know, it's one of those things that out here, you know, we like to keep it real and discuss things from different vantage points and just like look at not necessarily how some people do it. It's like a blame thing. We just like to, you know, really unpack and look at different aspects. So we want to look at, do women feel, I guess, safe and supported in reporting some of these things? And in some aspects, you know, some people say that there's cases where people have these sort of dynamics within their relationship and they may not want to go to the authorities within that for different reasons. Maybe they don't want to see the person that they're with prosecuted in that kind of way. Sometimes they have like a love-hate thing where it's a backwards and forwards thing, and they see it as just, oh, we're in domestic, so to speak. So, you know, obviously we don't advocate none of these things, but we're going to explore and look at some of these tangents within this conversation. So what's good with you, Dean?
Yeah, man, definitely. Just looking to expand on some of the points that we previously made. It's an interesting topic. It's a sensitive topic. It's got many nuances to it, which we're going to expand on now.
Yeah, once again, man. So we're back with it. I'm gonna, you know, as you can, I got a couple of tabs I've got to close down because otherwise I'm gonna be peeled away. So I'm gonna let you take the floor with this on this one. And
yeah, absolutely. So the case study example I want to use on this topic was Mason Greenwood. Obviously, we heard what happened a couple of years ago with Mason Greenwood. We heard the audio, right? We heard the audio. We know he did what he was accused of doing. There's no ambiguity to it. In addition to this, we saw the pictures of his girlfriend, the bruises, you know, the physical impact that she received after what Mason Greenwood has done, right? So in this situation, there's no ambiguity. There's no confusion. He did what he did. But what's happened recently? He's got a non-guilty plea in his favor. He's been acquitted, essentially. Now, the reason why is because his girlfriend, he obviously split up after the initial incident a couple of years ago. They've now, since then, got back together. She's obviously fallen back in love with him. So because she's fallen back in love with him, she's now retracted her statement, right? Even though she accused him of X, Y, Z, we heard it, the audio, we saw the physical impact. She's now retracted her statement. So we know he did it, but he's not guilty. Now, the reason I bring this up, this is bad news for women who are actual victims of rape and domestic violence. And it's also bad news for the charities and organizations and activists who are against this kind of thing, because it's now made this situation more trivial. Someone has clearly done something, but now they've got a not guilty plea. This is not going to give these women who are accusing these guys any confidence, because they're going to think, well, people aren't taking us seriously. In addition to this, a lot of women are scared to press charges against their, it could be a boyfriend, husband, or whoever it was, because they're scared of the reaction that he might give them, or they're scared of him. They're in a relationship built on fear, not on love. So we're now seeing situations where the woman something might have happened to her, but because of certain situations like the Mason Greenwood situation, or because people might not take her seriously, she might not feel comfortable coming forward. So in the same way that we talk about false accusations are horrendous, it's equally horrendous if a woman has been the victim of things we've mentioned, but she is not forthcoming in coming forward to the authorities, to the police, to the reporting, because they don't have confidence in being taken seriously by the authorities, or she's in a relationship of fear where she's worried about what the reaction is going to be from her partner. So I think it's very bad news that Mason Greenwood has been given a not guilty plea. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a solicitor. I'm not in the,
Of course,
I'm not,
we don't work in
I'm not in the legal field, obviously. But I think it's very bad news. I do think it's bad news. Some people say, well, who am I to say that? You're not in the court of law. Well, we saw what happened. We heard what happened, and the fact that Manchester United have got rid of him shows that they know what happened as well. They've washed their hands of him. They want nothing to do with him. He's had to leave and go to a club outside the country. So that's just one case study example of where it's bad news for women who are actually the victims of these things we've mentioned.
I think it's a great example because one of the things that I aforementioned on the previous broadcast was there's oftentimes cases of people slipping through the net, so to speak, and they may not necessarily end up being charged with something and serving time and their debt, paying their debt to society that way. Hey, you still connected? Yeah, guys, Dean may be having some technical issues, but he should be back.
Yeah. So I thought you froze for about 2 seconds then, but you're back now. It's fine.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to keep rolling. I was saying.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. It might take you a couple of seconds to buffer. I'm just going to continue. Why? I was saying a lot of people haven't paid their debt to society and have slipped through the net, like you made an example of also. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one thing that is definitely important to look at. And the trivialization of when people are coming out is something that's important, because I think if people don't feel that support is there. You made a great point where you said some people in these relationships or circumstances already are at loggerheads with be it their partner or their predator or their abuser, however way you may choose to frame it or look at it. So let's say they're already in a position of fighting like an uphill battle where they feel like, there's no support there. That's a fight. It's like breaking out or something. Not only sometimes they're worried about, them, they're worried about if, they take it to the authorities, if it's going to affect their relationship maybe they have with that person's family and so on and so forth. There's other implications. Sometimes there might be kids involved. So, we do understand, as you said, that people may make different choices therein that which may alleviate the individual out of some responsibility. And, inevitably they don't end up paying their debt to society in that way, which is a shame. And as you said, stuff like that sort of leads to this trivialization that we see, unfortunately, in some cases when people come forward, people sort of look at it with like a response of, I guess, is this just, somebody just saying this, or, it's not a real thing, or, they're just looking some attention and a lot of the times, as you said, this will cause a detriment and it can cause fear and inhibition to those who actually have been through these things and want to come forward, because they feel as though, well, where's that support going to be? Because they see that people are just going to slam them, people are going to slander them, people are going to add additional adversity to what they already may have faced.
Yeah, exactly. I understand from the legal standpoint, if she's retracted her statement against Mason Greenwood, then what can they do? They can't put him in either. From their point of view, they have no choice. She's saying, okay, she doesn't want to press charges. She doesn't want to pursue any further. She doesn't want to proceed against him. So from their point of view, they had no choice but to drop the case. And by dropping the case, by default, he's not guilty. My only concern is, I hope this doesn't lead to situations where men in the future, predatory, horrible, horrendous men, think they can do this kind of thing and get away with it. Because if they made an example of him, not just him, we're not just using Mason Greenwood, other example, if they make a big example of them, that will act as a massive deterrent for people to do it in the future. We know these crimes are horrific, so this shouldn't even be in question that anyone's even think to do that. But we know there's some, mentally unhinged people out there, so we have to say that if someone in the public eye, famous, had done this and they've got a massive prison sentence, that would have acted as a massive deterrent to these horrendous men who even think about doing these kind of things. But with her dropping charges,
Danny Masterson's case earlier, because I think
exactly
that is a huge example of, an A-list celebrity. Well, some may argue say he's B-list or C-list, but I digress. He was a huge star in that 70s show and has appeared in a string of movies, very popular. I believe he might be second or third generational as an actor and stuff. And for his case to be exposed, and you know what, recently we've seen quite a lot of celebrity cases. Some of them have gone towards the celebrity's favor, some haven't. There was a huge case last year with, or it could have been earlier this year, I believe. I'm not going to put up the information right now, but I do recall seeing it with Kevin Spacey. And he was under trial in the UK for allegedly, being indecent to some guys. And, they put it to the authorities and stuff, but he was ended up cleared of, sexually assaulting 4 men, or acquitted of 9 different charges. But, some say it's a power play. If you've got money, you've got power in some positions, sometimes you're able to beat the rap, so to speak. I'm no lawyer. I was in the court. I haven't looked at
exactly
or anything like that. Yeah. But as you were saying, when
you've made a good point.
So much of this stuff with celebrities as well, and people think, oh well, people are just going to get off of it. What's the point me coming forward? And I think it's a shame for those people that were so brave to tell their story. Look at that guy from B2K, man, Raz B. He doesn't know if he's coming or going. A few years ago, he broke his story, and then now he says it isn't true. Then it's 1 minute he says it is true, then he says it isn't true, and
you've made a good point there. You made a very good point there. And I just like to, as you're saying, I'd like to touch on that.
Yeah,
using the famous aspect there. Again, referring to case study that I'm using, Mason Greenwood. He's got, look at Mason Greenwood. He's a multi-millionaire footballer, right? So she wants that life. She wants to be that life, have that footballer's wife life. The big house, the big car. If he was, on benefits in a local council estate, right, in his town or wherever, do you think she would have retracted her statement? No, probably. I don't know her, but probably not. But because he's rich, he's famous, and he can give her a lifestyle through the wealth he has through being a footballer, she wants to be a part of that. So she has let that outweigh what he did. Because if he continues with this, if she continues taking action against him for what he did and what we heard and what we saw, then obviously he's not going to want to be with her. So by him not being with her, she's then not going to be part of that lifestyle. The fancy holidays and the big car and the house, etc., the money, blah blah blah. So that's another point on that. People who are famous can often think they're above the law and get away with it, because the woman may be reluctant. If it's a wealthy guy, not just a famous person, but if it's someone who's wealthy, right? Someone who's wealthy, they can think they're above the law because they know that they can provide that woman with a very good lifestyle. So it's almost like they give them an ultimatum. Okay, you want to be part of my life? You want to have this lifestyle? You want to be part of the money that I've made through my career? Well, you're going to have to retract that statement. So that's another angle of it. In my opinion,
you definitely get that in some cases, like NDAs.
Well, exactly. Why is she press charge and then suddenly retracted the statement all of a sudden?
Yeah, sometimes a lot of the time they pay them off.
And that's not just mostly, and you hear this a lot. You hear this a lot with rich and famous people. So she's let his status, fame, and more importantly, wealth outweigh what was done to her. So that again, that's trivializing a very serious topic. That's another angle to it as well.
Right. I mean, do you feel in some cases, and I guess we sort of touched on it previously in prior conversation, the Karenicity that can be involved in some of these things, and I don't know if Karenicity has been added to Oxford Dictionary just yet, but I do believe it will be at some point in the future. But anyway, I digress. When we look at the Karenicity, and that is being able, like I said, the woman being able to call the police, hey, look, the black guy doing this, or hey, we know the type of attitude and sentiment. But let's look at the Karenicity stuff within this. So in the instances of like the alleged brick lady, and some say it was a lie, or we've seen other cases where people have said, hey, they've made it their duty to ruin a particular guy and know that if they make certain claims, just it can drag him through the mud, so to speak. Do you feel as though the system is weaponized in that way, or do you think like some of the women
Yes.
utilize the system as a weapon in that way against guys illfully in some cases?
Yeah, so touching your point, you've got the court of law and you've got the court of public opinion, right? You can be guilty in the court of law, which is obviously more serious, but you can be guilty in the court of public opinion. So you've got a situation where the people are deciding whether the person's guilty or not. But in that situation, that's dangerous because we don't know the full details. And often in these situations, we don't know the full details of what's happened. We don't know the full context. And that's very important because, we're saying, for example, the example you just given there with Brick Lady, everyone came to the assumption that she'd been bricked. Well, but no one saw her be bricked, did they? No one saw her be bricked in the face. And she was complaining that men didn't defend her there. Then 4 days later, not even a week later, 4 days later, it transpired that she was lying, and she's done these kind of skits in the past and these kind of things in the past. So it's like the person she accused or alleged or whatever. It's like we need to know the full facts first before we proceed with our opinions. And people are too quick to jump in. So in my opinion, unless there's cold hard evidence, people should hold back. This is why I think the court of public opinion is often quite dangerous, because there's often a knee-jerk reaction to what's happened. People are too quick to jump in, and then their opinion changes with the wind. When they get this new bit of information, they change their opinion again, and then they get this new bit of information, they change their opinion again, and their opinion just changes at the click of the fingers. And that's not a situation. That's why we have the court of law rather than court of public opinion. If people were condemned by the court of public opinion, believe me, there'll be people walking the street who've done nothing wrong who'll be behind the door, locked up now. So in my opinion, using that Brick Lady, example, we need to know the facts first. Once we've established the facts, then we can give our opinion. And that's why I think sometimes the court of public opinion can be a bit dangerous, especially, in these kind of situations where there's ambiguity and we don't have all the information.
Yeah, I think it's like a flip. I don't want to say a flip flop. What's those things they have at the playground? They go side to side, boom, 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 a seesaw.
Seesaw.
Yeah. So it kind of like a seesaw where I totally get it in that aspect, but I think on the other side, sometimes in some cases, the public opinion can be used to effectively charge the right people for crimes that they've committed, because the public can have that voice to, essentially point out a wrong or an ill that maybe has not unrecognized when rightly operated. So it is definitely like a seesaw. And as you said, in some cases, it could be just that unmitigated opinion. Now, I generally try to steer away from giving unsound opinion on matters, and sometimes we do see a lot of things happen in the media nowadays. I mean, even the other day, I believe I sent you the clip. Somebody had sent me a clip.
Peckham
was somewhere with a girl in a store, and she fighting these and stuff for Asian. So I've seen it making its rounds, and we had a similar reaction to first seeing it and saying we can't really speak on the complexity of it without knowing the full context of what happened.
Exactly.
Exactly. Sometimes people may give a knee-jerk reaction, say, "Oh, that looks bad or that looks wrong," and it's not to say it might not be bad or might not be wrong. Some of the aspects about it, but in order to give a true and honest outlook on it, you've got to know as much of the variables and the facts as possible.
Exactly. So touching on that example you just given there about the hair store in Peckham, South London. So if you look at the timeline of events, it's like a jigsaw piece. We put one piece there, then some new information comes out. We put another jigsaw piece, and another jigsaw piece, and eventually getting a full picture of what's happened. What's happened is people jumped in when we've only just laid the first jigsaw piece. So what I'm saying with that example is, first it was he assaulted her. Then because she was stealing some hair from the shop, Then it was like, oh no, he refused to give her a refund. Then it transpired that before the camera started rolling, because someone had their smartphone out, that she actually hit him first. You see what I mean? But when that first jigsaw piece was laid, it was all boom. She was stealing from the store, and he hit her. But as time goes on, more and more jigsaw pieces are being put together to give the full picture of what's happened. But after the first jigsaw piece has been laid, people have already made the assumption this has happened, and that's why it's dangerous. As you just said, and as I've also said, we need to know the facts first.
So, I mean, just to take it back a bit for our listeners and our viewers, have you got a full detail of how that series ran out? Because I haven't seen the full series of those clips.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you said, the seesaw. It keeps flip flopping. So it's like the latest I've heard, and this was at 5 p.m. today, is that before the camera started rolling, apparently she hit him. She was violent to him first. That's what I'm hearing. Now, obviously, no one had their smartphone out now, so can this be verified? I don't know. All we know is from our perspective is from when the camera started rolling with their smartphone. But that's the latest development. That's the latest one I heard this afternoon.
You'd like to think they had.
I'm interested in this.
Yeah, you'd like to think they had CCTV.
CCTV in the store. Yeah, exactly. Now the police are involved, so they're going to do the full investigation. They'll get the CCTV footage if the shop has it. I'm sure it does. But that's why I'm saying it's a little bit dangerous, because when that first bit of information came out, people were outside the store protesting, and there's hundreds of people out there leaving those little notes on the doors and boycott this store and this and that, and people are jumping in without knowing the full facts. I'm not saying she's right. I'm not saying she's wrong. Until we know the full picture, we can't judge. Obviously, it's a very unfortunate situation. It's going to affect her life moving forward, whatever the outcome. It's going to affect his business and his life, whatever the outcome. So it's a very unfortunate situation. But I just think people are just often too quick to follow the general consensus. So, for example, we live in a world where people like to follow sheeple. If someone else has this opinion and someone else has that opinion, people will follow that opinion because that person said it. There's the notion that, oh, the majority of people said this, therefore it must be the case. But are those majority of the people necessarily right? Do they know? The only reason why it's the majority is saying that because other people have followed them, therefore they become the majority by default because all the people have followed them. So in my situation, in my opinion, we live in a society where people are just too quick to follow. We were given a brain, and we should have the brain capacity to think for ourselves, think outside the box, and think, okay, well, let me assess this for myself and see what I think, rather than just copying what everyone says. But like I say, it is an unfortunate situation. I'm sure over the next few days there will be more developments. We shall see.
Yeah, no, we shall see. As you said, definitely there is a huge element of fellowship culture and what people consider as in some aspects, they call it virtue signaling. Some people reference it in other aspects, people saying, everybody, wants to be seen as woke. People are using that in a conjective term. And so I know there's so many different things going on nowadays, and within that, I guess we introduce things like GoFundMe and things like where people know, they can make money, they can raise funds, and they can put a story out and kind of something that people can get behind. And I think ultimately people like stories. That's why we see a huge uproar, for good or bad. Sometimes when it's a story that people might construe as negative, people want to hear it because they want to hear about it. If it's good, they want to hear it. They want to hear about it. People like movies, people like series, people like reading. People generally like stories. Now, stories have always had a historical context of how they can be used to teach and show examples. So I think we need to get back into those kind of elements of storytelling where it's, really creative, it's still fun, but it's in a positive sense to teach a lot of things as opposed to a lot of destructive storytelling and stuff nowadays, which seems to just be reinforcing.
Well, people like her.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I mean, people like. Yeah, so I was going to say people like controversy. This is what sells. This is why the new look on the front of the newspaper. Controversy, drama. Same with the news.
Yeah,
exactly. We look at the news. If you were to read the Daily Mail, which I do, guilty. You would think the world was a absolutely horrendous place where nothing good happens, but the truth is, good probably outweighs the bad. But the bad is what sells. And I also think that people want to feel part of something. So when the mob mobilizes outside the shop, there's that I want to be part of it. You know, I see all these other people, you know, outside the shop protesting and leaving notes on the doors of the shop in Peckham. I want to be part of it. I want to be in it as well. And that's what I'm saying about we live in a site where people just want to be part of the drama. That's what it is, and that's not helping any kind of situation. Because what it's doing, it's pouring fuel on the fire. So this is already an unfortunate situation, but it's now escalated out of control now. If you saw the pictures earlier, the amount of people outside that shop who were protesting, it's like this is just gone through the roof now, you know. And the reason why it's gone through the roof is because people are just jumping on the bandwagon. You know, a lot of those people there outside the shop.
Well, you know,
don't really care about the situation. Right? Some of them do, but some of them don't. But they just want to be part of it.
I haven't seen it, but hearing that, it sounds very eerily similar to a situation that happened in Birmingham a few years ago. And I distinctively remember people going and you know, protesting outside the shop, and then that led to them shutting down the shop, and then that subsequently led to more people coming in, it becoming more of a hype thing, and then before you know it, they was walking down the street, shutting down multiple shops, and they was just telling them all the shops they got shut, and you know, essentially, you know, not to make light of it, because there was some unfortunate blowback for the city, which resulted in casualties and deaths on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
You know? So
absolutely,
it was we know how these situations can escalate. So, you know, as you said, hopefully with the stuff that we're seeing happening over that side in London, people protesting outside the store and adding on, hopefully they don't add on too much and it doesn't get too crazy. But we don't have the full details. Guys,
exactly.
If they do, let us know.
But you remember the Mark Duggan situation in 2011?
Oh, of course.
Which led to the riots. It started in London, and then it was like nationwide. The Mark Duggan situation. You see there. That's a perfect example of it. Obviously, what happened with Mark Duggan in 2011 was unfortunate, but it started off as something, and then it just spread like wildfire. And in the end, it was people just looting shops just for the sake of it. They didn't care about the cause. They didn't care about what happened with Mark Duggan. All they cared about was, I want to be part of it. I want some free pairs of training. Started looting stores, and not just in London where it happened. It was all over the UK, even in places like Scotland and that. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. What's that got to do with this situation? Again, people want to jump on the bandwagon. People want to be part of the drama. People want to be part of the controversy. You know, and that's what's making these situations worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I do remember that situation, and you know, sometimes we do see with these events, it's sort of like it has a ripple effect, and oftentimes, you know, especially within the diaspora or within urbanized communities, because I don't want to make it sound like it, what you just mentioned, like with the Mark Duggan thing, we know that was initially a black issue, but with the stuff that happened with the looting, that became like other races and different people jumping on as well, because it then became more of like an urban community issue where it was the urbanized youth, just like within Birmingham and the urbanized youth around here. And, you know, when we see those pictures of them braided hat man and that, they were mostly like white hands and stuff, and the gloves are mixed, and, you know, it was a big mix. So we know that the Mark Duggan thing, as you said, the initial message and cause was primarily because a black man was killed by the police, and, you know, there was some uproar about that. People were protesting it. But then it spilled out to a wider urban issue where it just became young, inner city, urbanized youth from all races and groups, you know, just coming out and just really turning these cities. They had the UK looking like Gotham City in multiple places. Yeah.
Exactly. But to bring it back to my initial point now, I think that, you know, we live in a sensationalist world, which in some ways is not always a bad thing. But I do think that we need to have a sane head when we're dealing with serious situations. A sane head, whether it be, you know, rape or domestic violence or injustices, whatever it may be. We need to operate with a sane head, because that's the only way we're gonna move forward and not let these things get out of hand. I'm a firm believer that if an allegation is made, it's got to be taken seriously. You know, at least look at the evidence first and then go from there. I'm also a firm believer that, and this is an important point, that people need to only voice their opinions publicly when they know the full details of the situation. Otherwise, things can just go left. And that's what I think is happening in the world too often. You know, things going left.
Yeah, great point. Well, you know, we do see a lot of things going left, but we do want things to go right. See what I did there? But yeah, guys, we're going to wind down on this one. It's your boy FONZi Neutron, represent for BackTheOnline.com. Do join us online for more reviews, news, interviews, and exclusive lists. Once again, peace to anybody who's suffered with any of these causes, or anybody who's got family, anybody, you know, friends, close ones, been affected. Definitely, you know, be there for you folks. Watch each other's backs, so on and so forth. You know, it's a crazy world, but we do here disseminating these messages, looking at these things that happen as the world turns. You know, hopefully we will see some better in some of these days going forward. We definitely say thoughts and prayers to those who have lost their lives out there in some of the cataclysms happening in the world right now. We've seen the Maui fires, and we've seen a lot of natural disasters in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Libya and Morocco. So thoughts and prayers to everybody out there in the world. It's a crazy time. You know, so much trouble in the world, but we keep moving forward on a positive. Do let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Your boy FONZi Neutron, Dino, we out on this one. Peace.
Deuces.
You do bits and pieces. So we definitely want to salute you and, you know, say salute for the creative works and stuff as well, because it's one thing that I found refreshing is when we look at just artistry nowadays, and as you said, there's so many things being done in such a cookie cutter way, but taking things back to those fundamentals of an artist, just really being creative, and not just being creative, but being socio-political, being able to explore different issues and things that are happening, still being able to articulate that outside of the music, but the music still being fun. So we definitely celebrate that kind of work here.
Thank you very much, Warren. It's much appreciated.
No doubt. So we're going to catch you soon. Guys, do tap back in with us next week. We're going to have another special guest. Hopefully, I'm going to be looking at some things that have happened in the media this week. So we got Leeds Carnival coming up. Also, family will be out there. Salute, support. It's your boy, One Love.
It's the diary of a tired black man. It's the diary of a